Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We're here for another edition of Constantine Quarantine Live News on the 25th of March 2020. This lovely Wednesday afternoon coming to you live from a house in Melbourne, Australia. First thing we're going to start off with is a little bit of a discussion about how you can participate in the show. If you'd like to call me, if you'd like to SMS, or if you'd like to participate in the live chat that's happening right there, just get on board across your favourite channels, chat, and we'll get there. Or you can call me, or you can SMS if there's any articles or anything you'd like to discuss, either live or delayed. First things first, let's talk about what's happening in the news. Safari, let's go to Safari. Here we go. Financial review, ASX surges. The stock market has bounced. It's actually had quite an impressive bounce today. Interestingly enough, I don't know, my take is that it's a dead cat bounce. I'm a bit kind of concerned. There are a few really interesting quotes from brokers. None of them that would be talking about it today, but I'm saying in the broking industry, dead cat bounce basically refers to where there's been a really big fall in a dead cat. And of course, when it hits the ground, it tends to bounce and tends to rise back. But I think there's a lot further to go before we reach the bottom of this market. There's also a great expression in broking, which is that selling volatility is like picking up pennies in front of a steamroller, and that's what I think we're seeing now. We're seeing a lot of selling volatility now in the markets, and equally, there's a bit of a saying going around business, which is up via the stairs, down by the elevator shaft, and that's what we're seeing, sadly, in so many businesses and so many industries at the moment. It's pretty grim. Going back to the news, really interesting. Coronavirus, Australia Live updates from The Australian. The ACTU warns up to 2 million jobs will be lost within weeks. The ACTU warns that up to 2 million jobs will be lost within weeks, which is horrendously grim. But what they don't talk about in this particular piece is that in the Australian Financial Review on the weekend, we saw that the Australian ACTU and the unions were calling for a 4% rise in the minimum wage. Mental. So on one hand, the unions are saying, well, let's have a pay rise in a time when businesses and jobs are being shed literally thousands per hour. And on the other hand, they're saying, well, actually, we want to enhance and create more job losses. The unions are going to create more job losses by asking for a 4% pay rise. They are mental. Mental is putting it politely. And again, people that are mental in the Australian, coronavirus, 24 people catch the virus after a 50th birthday party at a Noosa restaurant. Absolutely stupid people. Thankfully, there is a bit of a shutdown. Now, we're going to do something really interesting here at Constantine Quarantine. We're about to interview a guest, but we're going to interview him on the topic of supermarket panic buying starting to ease. I have a bit of an issue with this idea of supermarket panic buying. Is it necessarily supermarket panic buying, or is it something entirely different? Let's ask our guest that we interviewed just a few moments ago, Ian Forth. You and I go way back, and I've always known you as a man of great intellect and also an ability to sometimes, I wouldn't say control.
There's been an awful lot of cultural trash talk about Australians should be better than this. A lot of videos about people wheeling out huge numbers of toilet rolls and poor old people being deprived of any. So I was very interested when a guy called Chris Morley, who's managing director of Kantar over in the UK and the US, wrote an article recently. He's got a data of a representative panel of data with over 100,000 shoppers in the UK. Now, there may be some differences in the US and Australia, but we've got what we've got, and it's my view also that people are highly likely to be people, wherever they are. So what did he find out? Well, he did find out that there were some people who you might regard as stockpiling, but they only accounted for less than 3% of purchases. And what's actually happening is that, yes, there are uplifts in sales across whole categories as much as 160%. That is a function of the following, as the data indicates. Huge volumes of shoppers adding a few extra purchases of products they normally buy. Not unreasonable. They're being told that they ought to get ready for in case they need to self-isolate. Adding a few purchases of categories that they don't often buy. And thirdly, doing it more frequently. Now that adds up to a whole load of buying. If the store has got inventory, like for bread or fruit or meat and so on, they then, as the shelves gradually empty, they gradually fill back up again. But because of the just-in-time nature of the supermarket retail chain, that can't happen when a category is taken by surprise. There's a very, very small amount of people exiting with 30 packs of loo roll. And of course, the sensationalist videos have captured that all too well. But that's very rare behavior, and it's not the core thing that's driving the fact that when you go into a supermarket, you'll find empty shelves. And I would just add, theoretically at least, you can add into that a whole load of people with a whole load of mums and dads with school children at home unexpectedly. So
absolutely. So consuming more at home rather than in, say, cafes or sandwich shops near work.
Exactly correct. Secondly, how do we know that they are not altruistically buying for people who can't get out? I'm not saying that there's a huge amount of that, but I would say it was a factor as well. So you add in all of that, and you get to a more rational exposition of what's happening in supermarkets.
So if we look at things in a classic changing consumer behavior sense, there's get more people to buy something. If we look at, as planners, our classic options or our classic go-to would be get more people to buy, get people to buy more, get people to use more.
It's 2 and 3 of those, Con, I think. I don't think we're seeing any more people coming into the supermarket, same number of people. But the people who are coming in are buying more frequently. They're shopping more regularly than normal. They're being encouraged to do that. And they're adding a few more purchases every time they go in. It doesn't take much. It's rather like a traffic jam. It only takes the lanes to go down from 3 to 2.
Yes.
Well, it's not, but you don't get a 2/3 effect. You get a flow back effect. So that the knock-on or the compound interest, if you like, to use another way of looking at it, means the knock-on effect is empty shelves, and it's not primarily, or even not even one of the major facets, is people stockpiling. It's quite rare. And also, presumably, the people who have stockpiled, you're not going to stockpile forever. I mean...
No, there is an element of intertemporal substitution there. People buying now. There's only so many bog rolls that you can handle before you don't need to.
And I guess, funnily, I'm just kind of riffing on this, but you would imagine that some of the people who did the initial stockpiling are probably feeling a little bit shamefaced, maybe a few of them, and think, I better actually let...
So what it really feels like is almost a classic Ehrenberg.
Yes.
We've reached the majority of the population buying a handful more of everything.
Yes.
We're also seeing them in shops at times where there may not have been the same element of yield management or just in time.
Yes.
And also because they're not at work and because the cafes and restaurants are sadly shut down, we're seeing just a general greater demand for supermarket shopping of all types. What about the idea that people are you know, you mentioned this this idea of compound interest on a different topic. What about this idea that people have become overnight statisticians?
Yeah, well, they have. Everyone's an expert now. I guess if this had all happened maybe 20 years ago, when there was more trust in politicians.
Ian Deeker Fourth, welcome to Constantine Quarantine here on.
Well, it looks like we've just had a strange issue with the video. Hold on for a moment, everyone. Apologies. I am a complete noob at this.
You and I go way back, and I've always known you as a man of great intellect and also an ability to.
All right, everyone, hold on for a moment.
I wouldn't say contrarian, but somewhat iconic.
We've lost control. We've lost control.
You tend to have a unique.
Sorry, bear with me for a moment, everyone.
What's your take overall on some of these strange occurrences that have happened in this COVID landscape?
All right, it looks as though we might have to pause that for a moment. For some reason, we've got these dulcet tones of Forty and I again. We might move on. Sorry, bear with me for a moment.
There's been an awful lot of cultural trash talk about Australia.
I might pause there.
A lot of videos.
I might pause there. The software looks as though it's just taken on a life of its own.
And poor old people being deprived.
I'll restart the video shortly.
So
I'll be back, ladies and gentlemen.
When I